Thank you for joining us. I must say that I'm very excited for our two presenters that we have joining us today. They both work closely with students within marine-related academic programs at Oregon State University. So if you're interested in pursuing a degree in marine biology or marine studies, be sure to listen up, as our presenters today will tell you about the unique opportunities that OSU has to offer. We're going to be hearing from Dr. Cynthia Leonard, who serves as the academic advisor for the Marine Studies Initiative. She will discuss the different marine academic programs, majors, and minors at Oregon State University. She will also share what Oceans 11, which is OSU's first cross-campus transdisciplinary super cool active fun student marine club. She's going to share what they're up to. We're also going to hear from Yi-Chung Chung, the academic programs manager for Oregon State University's Hatfield Marine Science Center. He's been instrumental in developing academic programs at the Marine Science Center, including an expansion of internships, course offerings, and growing areas associated with OSU's Marine Studies Initiative. Yi-Chung mentors students within OSU's marine biology program and is passionate about emerging technologies in teaching, experiential education, student research, training, and diversity in the sciences. So we're very thrilled to have both of our presenters. Dr. Leonard is going to be the one to start off our presentation here today. So Dr. Leonard, you can go ahead and start your video, and then you can share your screen and begin your presentation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm excited to tell you about all the marine programs at Oregon State. And but first, let's find out who we have with us today. So we're going to take a couple polls here and find out who we have. And the first poll that Kate will bring up is, what part of the US, where are you from? Oregon, West Coast, not Oregon, Central US, East Coast, outside the US. So if you could choose one of those, answer that. We'll see where you all are from. Most of you are from Oregon. All right. Okay. Next is your class level. What grade level are you in? Are you elementary school, K through 5, middle school, 6 to 8, high school, 9 to 12, college, adult? Ooh, most people are in high school. 92% are in high school, and 50% are sophomores. Do we have any seniors there? I can't see the senior one.
8% senior.
Okay, all right.
25% junior, 17% freshman.
Okay, cool. And then last, our question is, what is your favorite ocean or marine animal? And people say shark. 21% said shark. Next looks like it's the sea turtle and octopus and the jellyfish. Ooh, okay, all right. I'm surprised, not that many whales. Usually whales come up big. Okay, thank you. So we can have an idea of who's here. Oregonian sophomores and sharks. All right, where we're headed today is, first we're gonna talk about what colleges with marine related programs. And you're probably like, well, what are you talking about colleges when we're at Oregon State? Isn't that a college? And that's true. So Oregon State is a university, and within the universities, there's colleges. So it's kind of just a subset of the university. So you have, I'll say them in a little bit in the next slide. So we have colleges with marine related programs, and then I'll tell you about the Ocean 11 Marine Club. And then Yi-Chung will talk about the Hatfield Marine Science Center and all the opportunities that are there. And then we'll have a question and answer period. So here are all the different programs, marine programs at Oregon State. There's a lot of them, as you can see. And sometimes they're kind of confusing, but we'll talk about each one of them. And in the middle of the octopus, you see MSI, that's Marine Studies Initiative, which is kind of the overarching initiative program that's kind of help connecting all these. And HMSC stands for Hatfield Marine Science Center. So a lot of things to choose from. And colleges with marine related programs are the College of Ag Sciences, Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences, which we call CEOS, because that's a lot easier. engineering, forestry, liberal arts, and science, College of Science. And so first of all, let's talk about the CEOS, College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences. So in CEOS, there's the Earth Science major with the Ocean Science option. Now, when I talk about an option, that's the same thing as a specialization or like the focus. So that's different than a minor. So you've probably heard of majors and minors. An option is just with this particular major. So you couldn't have an ocean science option with like a fisheries and wildlife major. You have to stick the option with that major. But a minor you can put anywhere. You can be a music major and have an blanking, an oceanography minor. Does that make sense? Okay, so option, when you see option, that just means a specialization. And this option, this major with this option, it's designed to give you the students a real interdisciplinary training in all aspects of the marine environment. So it's looking at how the marine environment influences the planet Earth, which includes people. And so, but it's not just here in the Pacific Northwest. You look at like coastal mangroves and the tropics all the way to the polar regions, the ice polar regions. So it's real broad. And you learn to use all the different varieties of approaches to study the ocean, like satellite remote sensing, computer modeling. And you also get to go on some cruises using including multi-day expeditions on some research vessels. So pretty cool. And at any time, Yi Chung's going to jump in and add if he wants to, too. So if you hear his voice, that's what's going on. Okay, another major in CEOS is the environmental sciences major. And that's pretty broad, but it's aquatic biology option. So you're looking at the ecology in fresh, estuarine, and marine environments. Okay, so you can study an in-depth study of plants and invertebrates and insects and fish and mammals, all in aquatic environments. Another major in CEOS is the environmental sciences major applied ecology option. So the one above was the same one, environmental sciences, with aquatic biology option. And this one is the environmental sciences major with the applied ecology option. So environmental sciences is pretty broad, but the option focuses on a particular thing. And the applied ecology one, you look at natural and social sciences, ecological studies, and field methods, okay? And so you can select marine-oriented topics and courses, but it's looking at ecology versus this one is looking at the biology, okay? And then in CEOS, you can have the oceanography minor. Again, this is a minor, not an option. So you can put this minor with any major you have. So a lot of engineers will pick, not a lot, well, the ones interested in ocean will pick the oceanography minor if they want to focus on coastal issues. So, and this is concerned with all the processes related to the ocean. So biological, chemical, geological, and physical. And some of the classes do get to go on research vessels as well. They collect data from samples in the coastal ocean in Yaquina Bay in Oregon. And anyway, this is a really good minor to get interested if you're interested in ocean stuff and you're in a different major. Okay, so that's CEOS. So now we move on to College of Science. And here's a very popular one. This is a biology major with a marine biology option. So it's a biology major, so it focuses on a lot of biology, general biology. So you have chemistry and physics and all those kind of things, but then it focuses in on the marine environment and the organisms and their habitats. So, and this emphasizes research, and the really cool thing is in the spring of your junior year, you get to actually live at Hatfield, and Yi Chung will talk about this, in live and breathe and not eat, but everything about the ocean in the spring of your junior year.
Yeah, I think I'll just chime in real quick and just say that this is a very, it's a significant course. Typically courses at the university tend to be everything from 1, 2, 3 to 4 credits per course. And so when you think about this course, recognize that this is a 15 credit course. So this is all you do for the entire term, is basically eat, breathe, and sleep marine biology. and you live at the Marine Science Center in our housing complex, and you're in our seawater labs, you're in our lecture halls, and then you're out in the field. It's a very field-focused course. Students do projects pretty much every 2 weeks. It's team taught by several experts in the field. I think the students come away with, from this particular course, with really good applicable skills that can take them into internships or make them competitive for internships, as well as seasonal positions.
Okay, thank you, Ichang. So that's a biology major with the marine biology option. And another thing in the College of Science is the marine biology and ecology minor. So it's kind of a, you know, a compressed, well, I don't know if it's compressed, but it's a smaller version of the major. So again, because it's a minor, you can tack it on to whatever major you have. And so it introduces students to the diversity of marine organisms and their habitats. And it also requires a spring or summer term of experiential coursework at Hatfield. So you get to go out in the field too. Also the College of Science, you could add a marine focus to any of their other majors such as zoology or microbiology. So if you really like those science fields, you can just emphasize the marine environment. Okay, so now let's move to the College of Agricultural Sciences. And one of the majors is Fisheries and Wildlife Science. And this one focuses more on the conservation or management of the population. You look at the species and the critters, but it looks at the habitat and management. If you can think about that, as opposed to marine biology, which looks more at the biology, this looks a lot more at sustainable use, habitats, etc. So, and you can specialize again in coastal systems. Another College of Science major is bioresource research with a water resources option. And this is very focused on research. So you take a bunch of science core courses and then you do a research project of your choice with a faculty mentor. And because it's water resources, you can look at water quality, its impact on fisheries and shellfish and things like that. But it's very research oriented and looks at the water. And then also there's microbiology with an aquatic microbiology option. So you're getting down to the small level of the critters, right? Looking at bacteria and viruses and things like that, that are integral parts of the stream, estuarine, and marine ecosystems. So if you like going down to the microbe level, this is the major and option for you, okay? And then there's a marine conservation and management minor. And this one is all online. So you could actually do this one online. And it again focuses on the marine vertebrates, conservation and management. Again, it's looking at management habitat. Okay, kind of a bigger picture with the population. That's a minor. Okay, then in the College of Forestry, there's the natural resources major. And this is very broad, but you can specialize on marine ecosystems and coastal communities. So because it's natural resources, it's looking at critical natural resource problems. So you look at a lot of issues and you work in interdisciplinary teams and you deal with the social and political aspects of resource management. And then in the College of Liberal Arts, we have a brand new major called Marine Studies. And this focuses on the human impacts to the ocean and the ocean impacts on humans. And you have a science base, a foundation, but it really focuses on all the human and arts and literature and economics. And there's the specializations areas that you can choose from are like community development, environmental and social justice, global and transnational perspectives, marine entrepreneurship, politics and policy, and you can make your own blending them. So this is a really exciting new major we have, and that's in the College of Liberal Arts. And then if you like engineering, in the College of Engineering, you want to talk to your engineering advisor to how to tailor your engineering program toward ocean and coast issues. because engineering programs tend to be pretty structured. And so you have to really work with your advisor to see how you can work with marine environments. But you can take marine courses, there's projects, there's internships that are all engineering focused and marine focused. You can, again, the minors, you can take the oceanography minor. And if you're interested in this, you can put your name in the chat or make sure we get your name, because I have some handouts for engineers, specifically how you can get connected with advisors. So, and then there's some of you might be interested in marine pre-vet medicine, and the College of Science has two programs that most pre-vet students take, and that's biology, general biology, and animal science, if you're interested in looking at the marine part of veterinary medicine. And Hatfield, and I'm sure Yi-Chung maybe can talk more about this, is Hatfield has a Dr. Tim Miller Morgan, who is a veterinarian, a marine veterinarian, and his focus is on ornamental fish health and aquatic animal husbandry. So he's the one at the Hatfield Visitor Center who cares for all the collections of live fish and invertebrates. So he could be a great resource if you want to know more about marine veterinary medicine. So our whole push and exciting things that we can do for you is that we can help you put the ocean in your major, regardless of what your major is. Whether if you're music or graphic design or nutrition, we can put the ocean in your major. So after hearing all of those, we have another poll to find out what are your career interests in the marine environment, like right now. So if Kate can bring up that poll. So here's some options. Now, I know there's a lot, you can only pick one, but right now, which one kind of looks really cool to you? Marine biologist, aquaculturist, which is like, fish farming or oysters and other things. Aquarium caretaker, maybe you want to work at aquarium. Coastal engineer, a marine veterinarian, a technician that works on ships or ocean equipment, oceanographer, the tourist industry, and I believe the last one is what, Kate?
Marine archaeologist, historian, journalist.
Yeah.
There's also the option for other. If there's something not on this list that strikes your fancy, then you could put it up. So for example, Ed put in the chat, marine zoologist was an example.
Okay, we'll give you, oh, here we go. So far, we have 27% marine biologists, some aquarium caretakers, coastal engineers, oceanographers. So any of you coastal engineers, make sure if you would like, I can send you some information on that. Okay. Now, regardless of what your major is or what college you're in, there's internships available about the coast and ocean. So Hatfield has some internships, and I'm sure Yi-Chung will talk about those. The Marine Studies Initiative has internships. There's lots of different internships if you're interested in doing an internship about the ocean. So those are all offered. And also undergraduate research. So whether you're a freshman, a sophomore, junior, senior in college, you can get involved in doing your own research project. You can study abroad. You can go somewhere and study the ocean. We have students doing that. That's really exciting. And you also have the option to be a college ambassador, where you're kind of like a representative for a college and give tours and talk to students like we're talking to you. And you can just represent your college and talk about marine things or just about your college in general. Okay, now we're moving into Ocean 11 Marine Club. And I get excited about this because this is Oregon State's first Marine Club for students that is cross-campus. And no matter what your major is, you can be involved in the club. And that's why it's called Ocean 11, because there's 11 colleges at Oregon State. And the only thing that you need to have to join the club is that you have a love and care for the ocean and a passion for it. And it's a really neat community. We've started it a few years ago and it's really exploded. We have a lot of students and they're really involved and they just love the ocean. Here we are at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, the behind the scenes, some of them. And we have monthly large group meetings where we just hear, sometimes we'll hear speakers, sometimes we'll just talk about things. We do get acquainted things. So you get to know all the other students who are really interested in the ocean. And we have 5 really active committees. One's community outreach, and they do things like beach cleanups and metal straws. And I think right now they're, because of the COVID-19, they're working with one of our interest groups, which is ocean art, and they're creating some postcards and cards to send to people who maybe can't get out, kids in hospitals or people at retirement homes or whatever. So working on ocean cards. We have the field trip committee, and they've gone to a lot of really neat places. One of our students is holding an agate. We went agate hunting. We visited the lighthouse. We went behind the scenes on a ocean research vessel, things like that. We went to the Hatfield Marine Science Center, the aquarium, did some tide pools. Research and learning opportunities, where we just meet a lot of researchers and learn what they're doing. Plus, we've had a sustainability tea where we drink tea together and learn about research and talk about sustainability. Here they're doing whale photogrammetry. We're learning how to measure whales, gather data from drone pictures. And then of course we have social events. And then we also have the next gen outreach, where if you like working with kids, this is the one to be on. We go into schools and do things with scout troops and things like that. And we do a lot of crazy things. Like we had a float-in movie night where we rented the pool and everybody was on their floaty watching a movie. And we were singing along to, what's the guy's name? Sebastian, I think he sings in Little Mermaid. And we have some like great field trips. And we go, this is down at the Oregon Dunes in the South Coast, learning from the US Forest Service about dune ecology. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So we have a great leadership development program. So these are all of our leaders a couple years ago from all different majors, engineers and graphic designers and everything. So, and we have interest groups. So we have a surfing interest group, a scuba interest group, a photography, birding, kayaking, all sorts of different interest groups. So when you come to OSU, you can get involved in Ocean 11 and be a part of one of the interest groups. And they're itching to get outside when things open up a little bit more. So this is our scuba group. And now I'm going to turn it over to Yi Chung to talk about Hatfield Marine Science Center. So that's all the stuff, kind of an overview and things on campus.
Thanks,
So
Cynthia.
let me stop sharing. There you go.
All right, thank you. I just want to answer a couple questions that were in the Q&A session. So one from, how would a dual enrollment program with a community college affect marine study coursework? Cynthia, can you answer that?
Say that again. How would a dual enrolled?
How would a dual enrollment program with a community college affect marine study coursework?
How would it affect it? Well, we would have to look at your what courses you took at community college and then see how those fit into the marine studies program. We're working right now with Lynn Benton Community College developing a transfer program. And so once we get that figured out, we're going to send it to all the other Oregon community colleges to see how, if they can establish a similar kind of a transfer flow. So the marine studies major is a on-campus major. So it's not an e-campus. So if you want to be a marine studies major, you have to be in Corvallis.
So, and just to let folks know that the dual enrollment program is typically a partnership with Oregon State University and a community college. And if you go to the Oregon State University website and look under transfer partnership programs, you'll find a lot of information about a particular community college in your area that might have transfer agreements that would allow for you to transfer into OSU with a marine studies major. It is a fairly new major, so Cynthia is highlighting that those agreements are being put together now. And just to give you a sense of how new the marine studies major is that this term we're on a quarter system. So most of you are probably familiar with a semester system. The quarter system, we're on 10 weeks. And so the school year is divided into 4 parts: a fall, winter, spring, 3 quarters that make up the academic year, and a summer term. And the summer term tends to be the first term of the full year at the university. Most students only enroll and take courses in the academic year, that's fall, winter, and spring. Mind you that here at the Marine Science Center on the coast, which I'm going to share and talk about, is that we typically have the most of our students here in the summer. And part of that is because a lot of our courses involved a lot of field work and access to the field. So our field season typically is spring, summer, fall, winter being, sorry, my lighting is a little off. Winter tends to be the most quiet time here at the Marine Science Center. So another question was, how are internships working with COVID? That's a very good question. And it looks like Cynthia's answering that, and I'll answer verbally, which is that it's really dependent on the program and the type of internship. So service learning or service oriented versus research internships. Currently with the pandemic, a lot of things have been modified. And so with that modification, that means we aren't able to run internships like we traditionally do. And so we have a mix, I would say a blended version of internships where some are on site, but still physically distant. Housing is 1 person to an apartment versus typically we have 4 students to an apartment here at the Marine Science Center. And the internships vary with the advisors and whether or not they can accommodate all of the parameters to have a person in person. So we also have internships that are also fully remote. So there's that question. And then the other is, I'm interested in learning more about coastal engineers. I think Cynthia, you could probably talk a little bit about that, and then I'll launch into HMSC.
Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about coastal engineers, either I'll put my email, I guess, in the chat, and then you can email me and tell me that you were here and you were interested in it, and I'll get you some information. So I'll put my email there.
And I just want to chime in real quick as Yichun's transitioning to his version of the PowerPoint. We also had a webinar featuring a coastal engineer previously. So I'll go ahead and drop that information into the chat. And also in the chat is information, links, as Yichun was talking, links to the degree partnership program and the partnership schools list. So if you are interested in learning more about that, go ahead and seek out that chat box for those links. Go ahead, Yichun.
All right. How's the slide presentation look?
We're seeing your whole thing.
Oh, the whole thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, we're seeing your notes and everything. I think you just, there you go.
Okay, how's that?
That's good.
Okay, great. So, good afternoon, everyone. I really cannot seem to figure out this lighting situation here. Apologies. Okay, so Hatfield Marine Science Center. This is a bird's eye view of the campus right now. With I'm trying to see if we can see all of the different buildings here, and it looks like all of them here, and this is the site of the Marine Studies building. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So here is a map of the campus, which you saw earlier, and I think what I want to highlight is the number of partners at Hatfield. So we're not just Oregon State University's Marine Science Center, but we're also a site for several federal and state government agencies that are conducting research here at this 49-acre campus right here in Newport. We've got organizations such as the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the state agency, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. We have Sea Grant, Oregon Sea Grant, and we also have 3 branches of the NOAA administration. So that's the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Think of it as the sister program to NASA for ocean exploration. And if you look at this map, you'll see that everything in orange is Oregon State University. Everything in blue is a NOAA facility. Purple, EPA, and then we have our seawater system, and then our outreach and engagement and student housing. So a lot of buildings on site, including our new OSU Marine Studies building, which we're really excited about. And that just was recently finished. I cannot highlight enough how much research happens here at Hatfield for Oregon State University and all these agencies. And with all of that activity provides a lot of opportunities for students at multiple levels at the undergraduate and graduate level to, and also postdocs, to access opportunities in the field, to obtain positions and prepare for careers in marine sciences. And so I'm going to start off. What makes Hatfield so significant is that we have a seawater system, and that seawater system supports not only OSU's research activities, but also all the government agencies that I just listed. So they're all dependent on what I would say is the circulatory system of the seawater system that supports all of these different buildings and research activities with animals held in captivity, looking at growth rates, looking at interactions with their environment, how to sustainably harvest them, how to sustainably manage them out in the field. So a whole range of research activities that are dependent on the seawater system. And I think that's the reason why we're on the coast and why it's such an important, valuable resource. And as an Oregon State University student, this is your research center. So this Marine Science Center is your center. And so here we have OSU students doing research projects in our marine biology class. And then here are some of our pictures of our wet and dry classrooms. And when I say wet and dry, meaning we have seawater that is plumbed into the building, where we have seawater tables. Classes will arrive either for the day or staying through the term, and we'll go out in the field, collect organisms, observe organisms out in the field, bring them back, look at them back in the lab, and so forth. So I like to say that a lot of our courses here at Hatfield for OSU tend to be a third of it is in the classroom, a lecture, a third of it is in this wet lab or dry classroom, and then a third of it is actually out in the field. So here's an image of the Marine Studies building. And so this was when it was getting built, and it is now finished, and it's a lovely building. It is a really significant building in that it is the first building on the West Coast that is a vertical evacuation route for 900 people by FEMA standards, and serves as, so it serves as a tsunami vertical evacuation route, as well as withstanding an extra large earthquake. So the thing is really built to be another place for us to evacuate to in the event of any issues. So here's the finished building, and you see the entrance, the back entrance is really nice. This is where we hope to have all of you congregate. And we even have a fire pit that is designated in this courtyard area. So we'll have students utilizing that for some of our summer programs. State-of-the-art classrooms in this new building. So this is the creation and building and construction of it. And here's the finished picture of it. So you can see we are really bringing a new level to research here on the coast. Some of our collaborative spaces and wet labs. This is our new large classroom. And now it's just a really great, beautiful facility for teaching and learning. We also have collaborative spaces utilizing multiple monitors, multiple tables for small group activity and project-focused courses. And we also have collaborative spaces in the lobby and throughout the entire building for essentially sharing and talking about research in the field. We also have an innovation lab. Think of it as kind of a maker lab. So a large space that has a lot of tools for doing machine work, electronic or electric work, welding. Think of it as kind of, think of it as career technical education using high-end tools to develop the next sensors, the next AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles, the next system or contraption that's used for sampling. This will be the new space. So very beautiful. Tools are not in, but you notice there's a really heavy jack up at the top, and that's to move large equipment. So this is really an industrial strength maker lab. That also includes a artist studio and also a business seminar pitch room, or should I say a kind of a conference presentation room. Another image of the innovation lab. And then we have a new 300-person auditorium for classroom and performance space. We're really excited about that, which will add another avenue for having science meetings that are specialized around everything from, say, seawater systems to sea star wasting syndrome to marine mammal research to sustainable energy, all right? Okay, so this image highlights a lot of what our students are doing here at Hatfield and on the coast through Oregon State University. A number of these images are pictures of students in classrooms performing necropsies, which is like an autopsy for marine mammals. We have students out doing sampling, out on research vessels, launching AUVs, observing marine mammals and birds out in the field, and participating in research cruises with NOAA, ODF&W, US Fish and Wildlife, and EPA. Again, I cannot reiterate how much activity happens here at the Marine Science Center, and this is probably one of the most dynamic marine science centers in the country. So finally, I want to get to some of the research programs here at the Marine Science Center. And so they're specific to Oregon State University, and that is the Marine Molluscan Broodstock Program. So think of aquaculture or mariculture. So basically farming in the ocean or the estuaries. And right here are a series of images focused on oyster aquaculture. We're also broadening that to include seaweed aquaculture. So you may have heard, or you may want to Google seaweed or bacon seaweed. This is dulse, D-U-L-S-E. It's a seaweed that is supposedly tastes a little bit like bacon, but has other properties that are resourceful for medical research. And so this is a seaweed that is also being cultivated in tanks here at the Marine Science Center and also growing into a large industry. Other areas, the Marine Mammal Institute incorporates multiple groups doing everything from satellite telemetry work, basically tagging marine mammals and following their life history, trying to understand their life history habits by their migration patterns, their deep diving patterns, their feeding patterns and behaviors. We also have folks looking at the population genetics of different marine mammals and trying to understand, do we have a better sense of what their populations really are like, to using drones to get even better images and behavioral data on marine mammals. Quite a large growing field here at Hatfield. We also have a focus on marine fisheries genetics as well as whale or cetacean genetics. So incorporating a lot of this things that you're learning as sophomores, a lot of you in biology are probably learning a little bit about molecular biology or genetics and genomics. We have a very strong program looking at this. In fact, the whole second floor of our new Marine Studies building is pretty much devoted to this kind of work, not only at OSU, but also with our state and federal agencies. We also, of course, have ship operations. So we have several research vessels like the Oceanus and the Alaka, which are vessels that go out to sea. We have courses on these vessels as well. In the bottom right corner, you'll see a cage with a rosette of seawater bottles. That is our CTD. And our rosette of water bottles. That is the standard for essentially a ruler for understanding the open ocean conditions. It measures conductivity, which is for salinity, temperature, and depth. So it gives you a really great profile of the water column in the ocean. And then from that, anything that you're looking at is in relation to that standard ruler. Finally, I want to talk about the Coastal Oregon Marine Experiment Station. This is an experiment station that is devoted to marine resources. So as Oregon State University's land grant institution, we try to share all of the research that we have gained to Oregon citizens. And that includes mostly agriculture in the very early years, but has now expanded to a lot of other resources, and one of that being marine resources. And this is a really great program that has a connection with Oregon State University's Seafood Lab up in Astoria. And that is doing everything from seafood science and engineering, developing pizza crusts out of fish protein, noodles out of fish protein, to developing better, more safe processing methods for our seafood and seafood security, as well as looking at market indications for seafood science. And then we also have the couple more programs that I want to highlight that you should pay attention to as high school students. The Pacific Marine and Energy Center. This is looking at wave energy, looking at marine renewable energy. And on the coast here at Newport, we have a site for demonstrating these technologies out in the ocean to see if they're feasible and if we're able to sustainably harness that wave energy for our operating our electrical systems. So operating cities and things like that. And then we also have the Global Ocean Observing System, OOI, the Ocean Observing System. And we have the Endurance Array. So these are all things you want to look up. These are millions of dollars of infrastructure set up to better understand our marine environment. And in this program or this focus, a lot of instruments, a lot of autonomous underwater vehicles, a lot of ocean going work, as well as computer science work. So we have a lot of folks looking at modeling. So any of you are interested in gaming, a lot of the stuff that's being done about game theory and modeling are very applicable to monitoring and understanding our oceans better. And so this is a hot ticket for a lot of folks who are interested in computer science, engineering, looking for positions and jobs that take that and apply it to the environment in a really exciting way. And then finally, I want to add, for any of the students who are interested in going into working for zoos, aquariums, field stations, marine science centers, even amusement parks, or even in the industry, our partner community college here in Newport, the Oregon Coast Community College, runs an excellent aquarium science program, one of only 2 offered in the country. That is a AA degree, so an associate in applied science degree in aquarium science. And in this program, you learn 3 major things. 1, how to build life support systems. 2, animal husbandry. And 3, how to exhibit design. So all those go into the skill sets that you obtain from this course that are transferable to any career that has to do with, say, aquatic veterinarian stuff. So we get a lot of students who graduate with their OSU degree. And you can go back and get a one-year certificate with this program as well after you've gotten your four-year degree to also strengthen your position for any careers in this field. That kind of concludes all of my slides, and this kind of highlights some of our interns in the summer at Port Orford doing whale research. It's a silly image of a classroom being held underwater, but I think more importantly, I want to share with a lot of the high school students here is this book, Navigating the Research University, a guide for university students. I'm not saying that you have to read the whole thing, but the first chapter is very enlightening for, I find is very enlightening for students who aren't familiar with the Research One University or even what that means and what it means to go to a Research One University. And if any of you are first generation to go to college, like your parents, and you have no family members that have gone to college, I think this chapter is really enlightening, kind of pulls the wool over your, away from your eyes so you can see exactly how universities operate. Because I think that's really important when you make such a large investment in your college degree to get a real sense of how these universities operate and so that you can succeed. Okay.
Thank you so much. So big thank you to Dr. Leonard and Yi-Chung for their excellent insight today. We do hope that this webinar has helped you envision what your life could be like if you were to attend OSU, the mentors and the network of researchers and instructors that you could be connected to. So we thank both Dr. Leonard and Yi-Chung for their time. So participants, we have about 5-ish minutes, maybe a little bit longer, depending if we can hang tight till 5 o'clock. If you want to ask some questions into the Q&A, we would be happy to ask these questions of Dr. Leonard and Yi-Chung. So this is your chance to ask all those burning college prep questions. But in the interim, I will ask a question of what are, and this can be for both of you, of course, what are some skills or what are some, a frequently asked question in our webinar series is, what can I be doing now as a student? What can I be doing now to prepare myself for college, to set me apart, help build up my college application? What type of experiences or training or skills would be useful to make our attendees more, to make them more competitive?
Well, you know, I think for the number one thing would be to obviously do well in your courses, to really try to excel in your courses. In the marine sciences, and so I want to differentiate that we have kind of two different kinds of majors. We have a marine sciences major, which is really heavy on the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, math, and typically you think of as research scientists. And then you have the marine studies major, which is really a focus in the liberal arts area. So applying history, sociology, writing, literature, poetry, photography, social science, any kind of the human sciences in the marine environment. And it's becoming more and more relevant as a field and area. And I say that because we're recognizing that humans play also a big part in the ecology of the marine environment, and that we have a very large impact, and that we need to incorporate that in our studies. And that's why a lot of the research that large research proposals and focus areas incorporate multiple folks from different fields to work together as teams on these really complex problems having to do with the coast and the ocean.
I would say another thing that helps you in college is to work on your people skills in terms of just communication and learning how to network, and just practice talking to people, professors and teachers, because once you start networking, meaning, getting to know someone, and then they know how well you do. They'll be a good letter of reference for you or whatever. But it's a lot of it has to do with your people skills and communication and just presenting yourself confidently. You know, once in a while, call somebody on the phone as opposed to texting or emailing, because that goes a long way. So communication skills.
I would also add research. Do your research. When you find something that's really interesting, doesn't have to necessarily have to do with marine science, but when something really interests you, and you start looking it up on the web, you start reading about it, learning about it. So the question for yourself is, what are you spending your time right now doing when you're looking at your phone, when you're looking on your computer, in your free time? What are you researching? Because right now, the access that students have is unprecedented as far as the amount of information that's available out there, as far as courses, programs, experiences, careers, things out there. And if you can at least start gathering that information and developing a foundation of understanding in these areas of interest for you, you can start talking about them, like Cynthia's expressing, and then developing a sense of what your interests are. And they can be broad. Don't be limited by one. One of the challenges is that a lot of students feel they have to choose one major or one minor. And the reality is, this pandemic has really exploded everything in that you really can start combining and thinking outside the box in a lot of different areas. And I think there's a lot of flexibility. And so it's an exciting time, I would say, for a lot of you in high school right now, going in over the next 10 years, a lot of infrastructure support, a lot of focus on supporting students to get in these areas, and also just simple access and flexibility for a lot of this information.
Fantastic. And to echo that, I also want to comment that it's great to say yes to a lot of different opportunities. You don't know what you do like, you don't like, unless you kind of try it out. So as you're in high school and you find opportunities, try things out. You don't always have to know exactly what you want to do when you head into college. So college can be a time where you can try different things as well. We had a quick question slide in here. So ask this question, then we'll have to wrap it up, my friends. What is one of your favorite programs that is available and you often encourage students to take? So example, to help communication research in order to just keep learning. So what kind of programs would you encourage folks to take advantage of?
When you say favorite programs, what do you mean? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Interpreting what they have here. So it looks like it's just, what are some programs that you can encourage students to take that can help them work on their communication, help them work on research skills? That's the interpretation I'm getting.
Yeah, I would say get comfortable, clearly get comfortable with being able to communicate verbally as well as on paper. Being able to clearly think and focus and concentrate and share a succinct message. I would encourage folks to start thinking about programming skills. I think by default, if you want to go in the marine sciences, I think it's important if you can get computer science experience, whether it's just some basic programming or just understanding the fundamentals of computer programming and how things work. Research stuff, I would say read. If you find something that's really engaging and interesting, look at the bibliography, follow that bibliography and who they're referencing, and find out what kind of questions are people asking, how are they trying to answer those questions. That's our basic research.
Fantastic and great questions, participants. We're going to have to go ahead and wrap up, but as I'm wrapping up, feel free to add your questions into the question and answer or into the chat box, and we can work with Yi-Chung and Dr. Leonard to get those answers posted on our website. So thank you again to Dr. Leonard and Yi-Chung for joining us today. And hopefully students, you're seeing that no matter what degree you choose, or what major you choose, you can incorporate ocean and marine related topics and themes into your degree program. So thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you for having us.